Welcome to the Current Report podcast. I'm Cece Woods, investigative reporter at thecurrentreport.com, and we have a full house here. I have my co-host Prime.
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome. And we have two very special guests, former LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva and former Assistant Chief at LAPD, Labrada.
Woo, full house. VIPs.
With the best of the best.
The best of the
LA
best
County.
indeed.
Okay, I'm super excited, but our law enforcement is not super excited in LA County, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And we are also going to talk about how not only are the numbers declining rapidly as far as personnel at both LAPD and LASD, we aren't going to be able to get these people back. We are not going to be able to get the right amount of personnel that we need to be prepared for the Olympics. And that is what is super important that people understand, especially the residents of LA County, because there is going to be an influx of visitors for the World Cup and the Olympics. And these agencies will not be prepared. They will not have the personnel. They likely won't even have the resources, as in working radio cars, working CAD systems. I mean, anyway, there's a ton of information that we need to discuss and go over. So we're going to start with Alex, only because we've had this established number for quite some time. As of last year, Alex, you want to take it away when Assistant Sheriff Jason Skeen went in front of the Civilian Oversight Commission?
Yeah, he gave a number of 4,166 vacancies, which was roughly half sworn and half professional staff.
100 employees below its authorized FTE levels?
That's correct. We have approximately 17,148 positions that we're authorized to fill. However, due to both the impairment rate and the vacancy rate, we have 4,166 vacancies, or approximately 24% of the departments unavailable, which means for every 3 people, they have to do the duties of one additional person.
And okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
But the numbers we're hearing more updated now is that the sworn staffing is dipped below 8,000. Now it's in the high 7,000s, which is a mind-boggling number that hasn't been seen since. Hey, that number is smaller than when I came out of the department in 1986. Just wrap your mind around that. And that number is not getting any bigger. It's actually, well, that number is shrinking. The vacancies are getting bigger every day because the attrition is far outpacing the ability of the incumbent to recruit and hire. And if we were to factor into recruiting, hiring quality applicants, the cream of the crop, it's a dismal figure right there, because we know that he hired on his first year on the job, he hired all the applicants that we rejected when I was in office. So that cannot go very well. Anyway, I'll leave that. That's at the first glance where we're at, and the implications of that are simply enormous in every component of the department. You're talking about day-to-day emergency operations, 911, calls for service, things like that. Then you go on to emergencies operations, which they have no capacity to handle. They proved it very easily in January of last year when the world fell apart. They had no plan. And then if you have upcoming planned events, they just don't have the manpower to be able to do it properly. Al, I assume in your neck of the woods, LAPD is facing a similar crisis.
Absolutely, Alex. We're seeing similar numbers, drastic number reduction from what we had at 10,000 just years ago to an approved number of 9,400, which was the budgeted amount, but we're currently at 8,145. with at least 750 additional officers expected to retire or leave early this year. As we all heard in City Council earlier this or last year, actually, we saw the additional funding loss. With currently we have 6 classes going through LAPD, with only 2 approved for 2026, which is not even going to be able to nail the tip of the iceberg for the attrition, let alone the early retirements or anybody else that's facing a shortfall from staying on the department. And then even more, as Alex mentioned, is now you have a reduction in civilian staffing as well. And guess who they're going to put to cover some of those civilian positions, whether it's at a jail facility or handling 911 calls. That's going to take additional personnel out of the field.
Now, Al, to caveat what you just said pertaining to the academy class, just so the populace has an understanding. Normally, when people think, "Oh, it's an academy class," you're thinking of maybe like around 70 to 100 recruits, right? How big are the classes? Those 2 classes that are approved for 2026.
Well, just to give an example, at the peak of our hiring in the late 90s, say 94, 95, we were running 2 classes per month. That's how heavy the hiring was. And those classes averaged anywhere from 60 to 70 to 90 in some instances classes, depending on how many recruits were able to get hired and screened and so forth. We're currently running about 30 per class.
Oh my God.
And that includes maybe
30. Oh my
30
goodness.
employees per class, but that could be 3 from the airport. That could be additional personnel from port as well, because they have additional people there that they send through our academy. So that could mean about 24 people or more, maybe less, that are actually LAPD personnel. And you're going to have attrition in the academy. It means people don't pass the exams or don't pass the basic post standards to complete that academy.
Alex?
Wow.
That those numbers are alarming, and it's almost like both agencies are going through a twin parallel disaster. And the attrition on the sheriff's department, they're plotted or basically forecast, and they're going to lose 600 sworn this year alone.
Oh my God.
And that was after losing 600 last year. And when you lose 600, you replace them with 400. That's not an occasion to break out the pom-poms, because you actually lost 200 in the equation. But leave it to the geniuses at the Hall of Justice and the board to celebrate a graduating class when they are the ones that actually froze the ability to hire back in April of 2020. Yeah. April of 2020, we were sitting on that magical 10,000 mark. We had all the personnel necessary to handle the pandemic, to handle the riots, and handle the fires that we had back in 2010. I mean, we had everything going on at the same time, and we had the personnel, and it worked tremendously well. Fast forward to 2025, when you had the fires, you were already missing a quarter of the workforce is gone. And now, if today the big one hits earthquake-wise, this is something people need to wrap their mind around. They will not see any symbol of authority easily 2 or 3 weeks anywhere, which means because they're just not there. You're going to have the infrastructure down. You're going to have freeways collapsed. You're going to have fires everywhere. You're going to have hospitals triaging patients out in the outdoor area because of the impact to the buildings and all that. And you're going to have every first responder now scrambling just to stabilize their own families, and then what's left to come to go to their local police station to see what they can do to help. And so when you're talking about mobilizing the National Guard, that is going to take a long, long time to accomplish and get them boots on the ground to help. So people need to be self-sufficient and start thinking about self-sufficiency for at least a minimum of 2 weeks. And I'm being very conservative with the 2 weeks. It could be upwards of 3 weeks to a month, depending on the severity of it.
Yeah, in early 2019, it was right after Woolsey fire in December of 2018, when you were just elected and you came to Malibu to talk to the community after we had just gone through Woolsey. You said the same thing back then, and you were at like the top of the top with personnel. Mm-hmm. And you were still telling us you need to take care of yourselves for at least a couple of weeks. Better plan on that. So you need to double or triple that now, based on these dismal personnel levels. I mean, it's just so scary to even think about. And then let's talk about the equipment.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Well, one of the things, and Alex hit a strong point on this thing, not only the staffing issue is a concern, but also just the long-term commitment of resources and preparation for these events. I mean, we can go back to the 94 quake in LA. I was a young officer then. That took us a long time. And the numbers were a little better back then. We're probably similar to what we're looking at now. And even after the Northridge quake, you're talking a regional disaster, not just in the city of LA or in the county of LA, but outside of the county and the city. So those resources are getting drawn from other locations as well to assist other emergencies. Fast forward to 2022 for the unrest, the unrest in Los Angeles. I remember meeting with Alex about preparation for those regarding, not only the personnel required for these type of major events and disruption, but also the infrastructure in LA. One of the whistles I try to blow all the time is we're not prepared for a regional emergency in the city of Los Angeles. We have an emergency operations center that runs the citywide management of all resources. So you have all the department entities within there, but we don't have a location to stage large number of LAP personnel. We've had to use Dodger Stadium for the riots. We had to use Dodger Stadium as a staging location. I was operating operations out of a trunk of a vehicle until they brought the command post vehicles out. In a parking lot, we were operating out of a parking lot behind the Department Operations Center. And one of the things I always said is, why don't we have a regional facility to operate a command post, unified command post for fire, county sheriffs, LAPD, as well as any state or federal resources that are going to be brought in. We just don't have that prepared in the city of LA.
I'm really concerned about the equipment on top of personnel. I mean, I'm hearing from deputies that have cars that start shaking at 60 miles an hour and that are old and have, they don't even repair them. And they're sitting dormant. They're not even being, I don't even know what to say, Alex.
Well, it's just, these are budgetary priorities of the Board of Supervisors. They figure that they're just going to starve the beast that they hate, which is law enforcement, and just shift the money towards the nonprofit world, to the homeless industrial complex, to the ghost daycare centers that exist in LA County, just like in Minnesota. All that money is going there. They're creating departments out of thin air, just like the Department of Youth Development, what's the other one? Justice, Care, and Opportunities Department. All these bizarre entities that they're crafting out of thin air that take away from the primary reason government exists, which is provide for the safety and welfare of the community. No, that's not a priority for this Board of Supervisors.
Prime.
Unbelievable. My whole concept with this is, in speaking with the deputies, my inbox is flooded with messages pertaining to this. The morale of the whole thing, because of everything that is transpiring right now, the morale of the whole thing, I'm getting messages that they just can't take certain things anymore, especially just like you said, Cece, when it comes to the equipment, it's detriment to their safety, officer safety, right?
Yes.
And no matter how many times they gripe or they talk about it, they're met with a blank stare.
Prime, I'll give you an example to really highlight money. The cost when we were in office for a new CAD system was pegged at $30 million.
Mm-hmm.
They allocated $40 million to the jail closure implementation team. In other words, a creation out of thin air to close something they know they can close got $40 million. But to get the computer-aided dispatch system that is based on 1980s technology into the 21st century, they didn't want to spend a dime. So this is all about priorities, not about a lack of money. No, not at all. When you consider the county budget in 2011 was $22 billion, and today is blown up to $49.8 billion, that is astonishing. 2.5 times growth, 250% increase in the budget yet they don't have money to do the obvious things they need to do.
So did they allocate that money? I mean, is the CAD system going in? Is it not going in? Heard about iPads. That's about it.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
What the iPads mean is that they don't have a replacement for the mobile digital computers. So they're trying to do a stopgap measure. Oh, you got an iPad. And deputies have enough with their hands full with all the equipment they have to dick around with an iPad now in the field. I think is stupid.
Oh my
God!
All it
does, it takes your eyes away, and is one more
dangerous.
One more piece of junk in your car that's going to floating around when you're rolling code 3.
So one of the things in planning for the Super Bowl 2022, one of the largest venues we've had here since the upcoming World Cup in 6 months that's coming, and then 2 years from now the Olympics. A lot of resources are required, not only for staffing these events, but also sweeps, bomb techs, canines. And one of the things we had to do in the city of LA is actually deputize multiple agencies from throughout the country to come in and support bomb sweeps at the venues, whether hotels, whether broadcasting stations, because here regionally, not only with LA County, but also canine teams from some of the smaller surrounding agencies, we didn't have enough to police the Super Bowl. Let alone what's going to happen with the Olympics when you have 50 to 60 venues throughout the Southern California area. It's going to be a very big challenge that we need to dive into a lot more.
Alex, do you want to add to that?
Well, I can give you some numbers. If I recall the deployment of deputies for the Super Bowl, we had about 370 deputies on the ground for the Super Bowl. For a normal NFL game, it runs us anywhere from 130 to 170. Super Bowl, obviously, more than twice that. And those numbers today just don't exist. And that's just for a one event, one day. Now, fast forward 2 weeks of events, and a lot of them, filling stadiums, the bodies simply aren't there. No, as the old saying is now, it ain't mathin'.
Yeah.
It ain't mathin'. Okay. Well, that's pretty dismal. That's for sure. Okay. Well, I think we should broach this subject. What about the use of force, the brand new use of force policy?
That's a big one right now.
Yeah. I don't know if Al knows if this is happening over at LAPD, but there is a new use of force policy that just came out. I think it's supposed to be in effect already.
February 1st, I believe it starts to be implemented. I think I have the note here. Sometime in February, early February, or the end of this month.
Alex, do you want to talk about that?
And this is a policy that's going to say pointing a gun at someone is a use of force reportable?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
That is idiocy beyond belief.
Yeah.
That goes right up there with the one, if you draw your gun or you break a seal on a gun, like on a shotgun, you got to write a report. What you're doing is you're adding elements to someone's decision making, which should only be based on the threat, not to satisfy bureaucratic needs. This thing was written by Black Lives Matter LA and the ACLU, wasn't written by people that actually have to use this policy and try to stay alive. And it is ludicrous. It is something I will eliminate day one.
Al, do you know if anything?
Yeah.
Sorry, Al, do you know if anything like that is happening over at LAPD?
Significant change like that I have not heard regarding the change that drastically. But I will piggyback on what Alex said is, what we're seeing is continuously archaic policies. Not only, I'm sure the Sheriff's Department is dealing with similar, but LAPD, we've argued the point of how long have we had this complaint system in place for the LAPD, where we dissect officers' actions quite literally every time they step out of their police vehicle because somebody either didn't like the way they looked at them, because now you just stopped me because I'm black or purple. A lot of these things can be attributed to just decisions that the supervisors can make on the field. That's why we have body-worn cameras. Those supervisors should be able to make those distinctions out in the field instead of having to initiate a personnel complaint that's now going to track that officer's background and his employment history for the rest of their career. So looking at the potential for change of policy for use of force and complaint systems, we need to cut down on it instead of tightening it up, because Alex said, we're making it more difficult for these cops who are already not only facing a shortfall, they're already facing consistent scrutiny from the public, an anti-police, defund police mindset in the community, that we don't need to add additional stressors to them by making more aggressive policies toward their work.
Agreed.
Let me
Prime.
piggyback on the piggyback.
Yeah. Yes.
Sacramento passed legislation that mandates that law enforcement has to now gather demographic data and about what race or gender they believe the person they stopped was for. And all these things that already were pretty much captured in a way by the CAD system with the call and the clearance of the call and all that. But because our system is so antiquated, they couldn't add additional fields to the current CAD system. So they had to create a whole new system called Syncers. So now deputies are having to satisfy 2 databases after every time they use or they do any type of police work. So imagine an 8-hour shift. They might spend half of an 8-hour shift just filling out forms, which means they're not doing police work. And that is part of the intent of the legislator of Sacramento. Tie their hands up, basically declare that they're racist, and then force them to generate the data to prove that they're not racist. When you have the body-worn camera, which makes everything else redundant because you have, hey, let's go to the tape to see what the reason was. So we're killing a lot of trees and we're destroying a profession to satisfy activists who don't even like our existence to begin with.
Prime, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so as far as the voices of the deputies at the moment, you have kind of a diverse issue here. You have the OGs that are been in there for some time. They obviously think this is ludicrous, this policy. It's going to cause hesitation, and then therefore hesitation can cause other serious issues. Then you got the ones that are in custody who can't wait to go out to patrol, but then stop because of this one policy. They just don't want to deal with that. They don't want to get involved in something like that. And again, that goes back to hesitation, and therefore it brings down the morale, which in hindsight creates other issues as well.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Al, go ahead.
And I was just going to say, it's similar to LAPD. It was a RIPA Act, Racial Identity Profiling Act, that implemented that. And basically, we have a CompStat process just for RIPA for the command staff to come in and explain, why they stop so many people that have green eyes or their skin's purple. In a community like in South LA, you're going to get more people that are a certain color, or in Hollenbeck Division, you're going to get additional, Hispanic communities. So of course it's going to profile the area you work. You can't change that unless you move demographics and you move the people out of the community. But the people in Sacramento are just, like Alex said, is just thinking numbers of how difficult it is, or making it more difficult for our cops on the streets to do their work.
Okay, one last thing before we let you guys go. Let's talk about this brand new ice-free zone ordinance. And I believe is going to create a mass exodus. Okay, not just a mass exodus that is already happening clearly with both agencies, but I believe it's going to go mass, and then some. Alex, you want to go first?
I agree 100%. I mean, pitting one federal law enforcement against local law enforcement is the agenda of an idiot. That's all I can really best describe it, because look at what's going on in Minnesota right now. Now you have activists disrupting religious services, which is a crime in California. Pretty sure it's a crime in Minnesota as well. And they're trying to rationalize it. Somehow the ends justifies the means. Then you have Lindsay Horvath here in the board, and they voted unanimously to create ice-free zones, knowing it cannot be enforced. Then you have a sheriff who hides under his desk, sucking his thumb, won't even say anything, didn't even show up at the board meeting to inform the board how idiotic this policy is. And that's a total abdication of any leadership responsibility or role that he's supposed to exert if he's running the department. I mean, Lord Jesus, there was a time to be president of the board and tell him, no, not on my watch. That was a time to do it.
Yeah.
Al, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. It's really, there's nothing to support on this thing. Whether they file a motion or whether the city council in LA also does similar, which they have in the past. Sanctuary kind of city. There's nothing they can enforce, and our officers are kind of stuck in the middle because it's just politics being displayed, by the talking head is really what it is. There's nothing there that the officers are going to do. They're not going to go arrest an ICE agent. But I will give it to Jim McDonald. When our city council questioned him, and I won't mention the city council member that asked, but when she asked him, can you call us when ICE is in town? No, we can't. That's obstruction of justice, just as he said.
Can we use technology like AI technology to create a situation where your department can identify, hey, there's agents, non-city of LA, in a neighboring town, everyone go on alert in a way where you can support our business community and our immigrant community to know that it's time. That's something related to the lack of due process, the lack of warrants is about to hit our town. I'm asking
I'm not sure what you're asking me.
creativity question here. What can your department do to do more to warn us, to warn the business community that outside of our LA borders, coming in from Inglewood, coming in from Antelope Valley, I don't know, you can warn us so that we can warn our folks in the spirit of your loyalty to the city of Los Angeles?
So you're asking me to warn you about an enforcement action being taken by another agency before it happens?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Why not?
That would be obstruction of justice. You may want to talk to the city attorney about that.
And that was clearly the correct response. We're not going to intervene, whether it's a federal, state, whether the county sheriffs are coming in the city of LA to do police work. We don't get in their way. And if they need support, we have to support them as law enforcement professionals. But I think the problem is that these city council members and as Alex said in this county as well, they're making these postures that are really just harming and dividing the community instead of just saying the reality that these ICE agents and DHS have an obligation to work as they do, just like we do.
I don't know one deputy or one law enforcement officer in Southern California, especially LA County, that is going to interfere with federal agents and their duties. Absolutely not.
I haven't talked to a single one, and they talk to me continuously on a daily basis. In fact, they're extremely upset over this. In fact, their exact words, where I have it written down here, is, "I've had enough. I've seen enough. I'm done." So they're either putting in for retirement or they're going to lateral out. They do not want to deal with this whatsoever in any way, shape, or form.
Yes, indeed. It is a very sad time for law enforcement and public safety in Los Angeles County. However, we are very lucky that Sheriff Alex Villanueva is running again, and you need to go to his website, alexvillanueva2026.com, and support him because we need him back. So anyway,
100%.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll see you guys soon.
Take care.
All right.
Thank you.